YouTube? This is Steve from Average Joe's Fantasy Football, and welcome back to the channel. We've got your free agency reaction to what's going to happen in this 2022 season and what I feel are going to be some really great positive things for a lot of these teams. And of course, there might be some things you might have obviously seen that are going to be some downers. But in this reaction video, essentially I'm going to talk about a few teams, not every team, but a few teams of some great signings, some trades, and how I feel they're going to be with fantasy going into the season. Again, everything is so early. There's still rookie draft coming up. You still got the off season. There's a lot of factors in this. It's only been 1 week in free agency, but I wanted to make sure I had a video for you guys just so you guys are up to date of what's going on if you aren't. And of course, that way you guys are up to date with anything that I feel is going to help you with any maybe dynasty. It's a lot of dynasty off season going on. I probably have done 4 or 5 trades already this week alone, especially with free agency that has happened. So again, thank you guys so much for watching the video. Let's go ahead and jump right into this. Now, the first team I'm going to talk about are going to be the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, Deshaun Watson getting traded to the Browns made a huge difference, okay? Now, what I feel is I think this is actually great for Deshaun Watson. I think it's an improvement. One, he's still dealing with a lot of that, civil lawsuits. He's still got a possible suspension that may happen, so obviously this will change my rankings when I drop those later on in the season, or excuse me, the off season. But this actually is a positive for Deshaun Watson, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that the offensive line is better there than what he had in the Texans. He also has a great weapon in Amari Cooper. He's got great backs with Chubb, with Hunt, Johnson. I mean, he's got a great team around him, and I think that improves his stock drastically, especially if he's going to play into playing. If he does play a full season, he's absolutely going to be one of my top 5 quarterbacks going into the season. Now, who I do believe is also going to improve is obviously Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper was also traded from the Dallas Cowboys. Hate to say that just because as a Cowboy fan, it's just devastating. But Amari Cooper at first, I felt was going to be a bit of a downside in his rankings. But I believe this helps with the fact that he's got Deshaun Watson now to his quarterback instead of Baker Mayfield. And I do believe this is going to help. Look, Peoples-Jones is one of those guys that I think is going to actually increase his stock with Watson and, of course, Amari Cooper there, especially since we don't know what's going on with Jarvis Landry at the moment. There have been rumors possibly of him coming back to Cleveland. Not really sure, but right now he's not there. So Peoples-Jones is another guy I believe is going to increase his stock. Now, another team I do want to mention is the team that traded Amari Cooper is the Dallas Cowboys. Look, they haven't done much offensively besides getting rid of players, but they did re-sign Michael Gallup, who I think his stock in fantasy is going to go up just because of that offense. They also signed James Washington. That's another great receiver that I think talent-wise, you look at him, he's somebody that was underutilized in the Steelers offense, and I think part of that had to do with the fact that Big Ben just couldn't throw past 5 yards. But I think James Washington is going to be one of those solid wide receiver 3 or 4s, maybe depending on how deep your dynasty, or of course, when we talk redraft, where he might be as maybe a possible flex, because he's going to really fall into the Michael Gallup role, since Michael Gallup will be the number 2 opposite of CeeDee Lamb. I do also think the re-signing of Dalton Schultz is going to help, and I think all 3 of these guys, I think their stocks have gone up in fantasy, and I do like all 3 of them into 2022 season. Now, the next team I want to talk about is the Denver Broncos. As you know, obviously Russell Wilson was traded to them, and that drastically improved Russell Wilson's stock in fantasy. He's going to a strong team that realistically is just missing a quarterback to actually be a really, really huge playoff contender. Then it also improves the stock of Jerry Jeudy, Courtland Sutton. I even think it helps improves the back. Javonte Williams, I think his stock goes up. The fact that they aren't going to hone in on him, it's going to be, wow, we have to actually respect the passing game. And I think the passing game can be even stronger, which is going to help Javonte Williams. So I think all of those offensive players for the Denver Broncos have only increased. And I've been seeing it a lot in a lot of fantasy. Look, Jerry Jeudy, he's one of those guys that if you can get him, you're going to have to give up a lot. But if you're a team that is in a win now situation that can get a young player like him, he's definitely one I'm going to go after. Now, another team I do want to talk about, obviously, is going to be Aaron Rodgers from the Green Bay Packers. Look, the Packers, Unfortunately, did lose Davante Adams. We'll talk about that when we talk about the Raiders. But Aaron Rodgers did resign. A lot of speculation of him retiring, maybe going to Denver Broncos. Maybe was, you know, a weird one like the Tennessee Titans because he bought a house over there. There's a lot of things that played a factor, but he did decide to resign. He actually resigned about 3 years. Look, I think his stock is about the same. And for me, I actually have him kind of stagnant. Part of the fact is you lost your best receiver in Davante Adams, and depending on how the draft goes, there are some good options, and I still think there's some great free agents. You know, you've got Odell Beckham still a free agent. There are definitely some players out there that they could get, but losing Adams, I think his stock can kind of be right here, right now. And depending on what they're going to do in free agency, may drop him or increase him. But who I do think actually helps, and I know this is kind of odd, but I think MVS and I think your boy Lazard, I think both of those players have actually got it up. I also think Robert Tunyon's stock has kind of increased slowly. Just because, again, now he's forced to throw to those receivers and tight end, where it's not always going into a Davante Adams, like a double covered Davante Adams. So I do think their stock has increased a lot. I've seen people going crazy for, you know, Valdez Scantling. I've seen Lazard going on trade blocks. I'm seeing a lot of these guys starting to get a lot more love and attention than they did before. All right. Now we'll jump into the Jacksonville Jaguars. I like their pickups in receivers. So we'll talk about the big one, Christian Kirk, who just absolutely stole from the Jaguars. And look, I'm not against Christian Kirk getting money. I think that's an awesome thing for him. What I do have a problem with is how much he is going to change the wide receiver payout. And I'm thinking, as a Cowboy fan myself, CeeDee Lamb kind of makes me a little nervous. But with that said, I actually think this helps with Trevor Lawrence. I think you're getting a good receiver in Christian Kirk. He's not a number one. We'll see how that plays out. I don't think he's a number one, but he is a good, really good player on the outside. I think he can play the inside. He had a really quiet season. He almost had 1,000 yards last season. It's very quiet. And that was with, you know, AJ Green, you know, in and out, DeAndre Hopkins, and in and out, you know, Kyle Murray. So there was a lot of that, but I do like Christian Kirk. I think his fantasy stock has gone up. Also, like I said, Trevor Lawrence's stock has gone up, and Zay Jones is another guy that they signed. Not as much money, obviously, as Christian Kirk, but I like Zay Jones. He's proved a lot for the Raiders, and he's one of those guys that I love to watch. I think he works very hard. He's obviously had some issues off the field that has affected him, but he's another one that I think he's a sneaky play. I think he's one of those guys that might be a sneaky flex play. Again, of deep dynasties, I think he's going to be one of those. Now we'll jump into the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs did sign Juju Smith-Schuster. Again, that's really the biggest offseason signing so far, and I actually think that's a huge one. A lot of people, I think with the injury last year with Juju, I think him being the number one and then kind of losing that to Deontay Johnson and then Chase Claypool kind of take it over. I do think that Juju has a lot of talent. I think Juju needs a number one for him to really kind of fulfill what he can potentially do, especially in fantasy. And the fact that you've got a future Hall of Famer and Patrick Mahomes throwing to you, you have Tyreek Hill, you got Travis Kelce. His stock absolutely went up. And I actually do think this increases Patrick Mahomes' stock. And you can kind of say that about Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, because one thing that I've always said about the Kansas City Chiefs, they've always lacked that other weapon, right? You had Hill, you had Kelce. One of those are hurt or one of them is shut down. It's really tough, and I think that puts so much pressure on Patrick Mahomes trying to figure out and try to do these crazy plays, but I think this actually helps him a lot. Now we'll jump into the I almost went to say Oakland, the Las Vegas Raiders. Look, Las Vegas Raiders made a big splash by trading for Davante Adams, and I think that was a shock for some. I am not too shocked. I think he made it very clear that he wanted to play with Derek Carr. He's from the Las Vegas area, I think. So that helped play a big factor. And I think I actually threw out a poll out there. If people think Aaron Rodgers was the reason that Davante left, I truly do think that he was part of the reason. I don't know if you guys agree with me. You can always hit us some in the comments and argue with me differently. But I think the drama with Aaron Rodgers, back and forth between, there's just so much off the field stuff. And I don't even think Aaron Rodgers wants to be part of that off the field stuff, but it just happens. And I think Davante just kind of wanted to get out of there because they didn't even see him as an important piece without Aaron Rodgers, and that kind of, I think, probably put a bad taste in his mouth. So I think Davante Adams leaving for Oakland, actually, I still think it helped his stock. I don't think it hurt him at all. I know you're going from an Aaron Rodgers to a Derek Carr, but I love Derek Carr's play. I think Derek Carr's, obviously his stock has gone up drastically. I think Darren Waller's stock went up. I think Hunter Renfrow's stock went up. All those guys have just gone up, even with the addition of Davante Adams. And I think that whole offense is just going to be actually pretty good. I mean, scary good. So I do like them a lot. All right, now we're going to go into the Los Angeles Rams. Look, them trading away Robert Woods doesn't help, but them signing Allen Robinson did. I think Allen Robinson's stock has absolutely gone up. I think he's still a talent that just was being wasted in Chicago. I think it helped with Matthew Stafford, who did resign an extension with them. I think his stock has gone up. And I think it helps a little bit of, Cooper Kupp. If Robinson can do what he normally can do and actually has a quarterback, I think that helps him out. There's still obviously the possibility of Odell Beckham being re-signed. Nothing's happened there quite yet. So obviously if Odell comes back, you have Allen Robinson and you have Cooper Kupp, that offense is still ridiculous. And of course, Matthew Stafford's fantasy is just going to continue to rise up. So I do like Allen Robinson as a good signing. I think it only helps. He's a great route runner. He's got, again, a lot of that body possession that can, go up and get the ball. Great goal line receiver. And I just think it helps a lot. I think it helps increase all of those players. Now, as far as the next team that I'm going to talk about, the Miami Dolphins, they did a lot of signings. First guy I want to talk about is Cedric Wilson. Look, Cedric Wilson's stock has gone up. Cedric Wilson, I hated to see go. I really wanted us to keep him and for the Dallas Cowboys. I did not like the fact that we lost him. I think James Washington is a very similar player, so I'm not too upset, but I like Cedric Wilson a lot. His stock actually has gone up. I think him being the opposite of, Devontae Parker. We don't know what's going on with Will Fuller, obviously. But I do like Cedric Wilson. I think he's got some big gameplay. He's a good, solid number 2, good, if not great, slot receiver. So I like him. And I think it helps Tua a lot, in his stock a little bit. Now, the signings of the running backs. Look, here's how I feel about the running backs. You have Chase Edmonds you signed. Cool. That was great. I actually liked that move. I thought that was going to be a smooth move. I actually started to think, wow, Edmonds might actually increase because he was obviously sharing a lot of time with James Conner. But then they signed Raheem Mostert. Look, Raheem Mostert, one, he's injury prone, which is, I hope he doesn't have that issue this year. I hope he stays healthy. But now you just hit into Edmonds' carries. You affect now Mostert's carries. And no one still knows what's going on with Myles Gaskin. I think he's obviously going to be the oddball out and he'll be gone. But do I think this helps Tua? Absolutely. I think it helps his stock. I think they'll run a committee. Now, as far as the fantasy outlook goes, I don't like Edmonds or Mostert at all. I think both their stock has just been stagnant or dropping just because you're not sure how this is going to play out as far as the committee goes. Obviously, when we go into the offseason, mini camps, all that fun stuff, we'll have a better understanding of who the actual starter is. But I think it's good for the Dolphins in real life, as far as, their play. As far as fantasy aspect goes, I don't like it at all, so I'm a little afraid of that. Now, as far as the Saints go, I have one signing, obviously. Here's the Jameis Winston signing. They were trying to, go after the whole Deshaun Watson. I know they were in play with that. I think it's better that they didn't, just because they need to start getting some draft capital on themselves. They're trading it away. They have flipped around their cap issue that was going on, but I think Jameis Winston going back to this team helps. You have a consistent leader. I know a lot of people have kind of, given up on him. I think Winston is a good fantasy quarterback, especially a solid, low RB, QB1, maybe a mid QB2. I think he's kind of in that range, right in that range, especially if you're in a super flex. I think he's still a solid QB2 in a super flex. But Jameis Winston's stock has gone up, obviously, now that he's back with the team. And I think being back with the Saints only helps him out. Now, the next team I want to talk about as far as quarterback play is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers signing Mitchell Trubisky. I like the move. I think he went through a lot with the Chicago Bears. He's got a great athleticism, which I think is what Ben, didn't have after, so many years in the league. And I think that's what made him so great. And Mitchell Trubisky can throw the ball. He's got a good arm. His accuracy, obviously, there's a lot to be desired there, and I think that can hopefully improve. But I like the move with Mitchell Trubisky. I think that helps the stock of Diontae Johnson and Chase Claypool. I really do, just because the fact that now you have a quarterback that is willing to throw the football and the athleticism to escape the pocket, because their offensive line still has a lot to be desired. Their offensive line is still a big issue. That's something that they need to focus on in this offseason, because it's only going to hurt Najee and Trubisky. But I think if they improve that in the draft, I think Trubisky's stock goes up, Najee's stock goes up, and I think the receivers, Chase and Diontae, I like the move. I'm one of those oddballs, but I do like Trubisky getting, going up into Pittsburgh, getting that opportunity to finally be part of a team that actually has stable coaching and a winning attitude, and I think that's going to help him out. Next team is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Obviously, the obvious, coming back of Tom Brady. Let's be honest, who really thought he was going to retire? I mean, this guy, unfortunately, probably will have to be taken off the field in an ambulance for him to actually officially retire. But him coming back, obviously, his stock goes back up. If you're like me, you probably dropped him in Dynasty. Hopefully, you didn't, but I did, unfortunately. But obviously, Godwin's stock goes up, Mike Evans' stock goes up. And then, of course, I think the signing of Russell Gage, it's kind of a quiet move by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It does, obviously, if you talk about, we're not even going to talk about the Atlanta Falcons in this video, but Russell Gage, I think, being as the third receiver, you've got Godwin, you've got Evans, obviously they can mix in Scotty Miller. I like Gage. And the fact that Tom Brady reached out to Gage says a lot. Actually, I think there was a video of Gage or maybe he was on the radio or something, and he was kind of surprised that Tom Brady called him. He thought it was a prank at first, but the fact that Tom Brady went out of his way to get him, he is going to be a solid receiver, and I love his stock going into the season. He's definitely one of those sleepers that I think is going to happen. I think he's one of those players that you should get into your dynasty if you can, if he's available. Now, the Tennessee Titans made some moves. First move I want to talk about is obviously the trade for Robert Woods. That is an absolutely amazing move. I think it's definitely an improvement over Julio Jones. Julio Jones obviously was let go by the team. I think it only helps A.J. Brown because now you have actually a pretty legit receiver on the outside, just because Julio Jones couldn't stay healthy. He also, his age was starting to show a little bit. And I know Robert Woods coming off of, torn ACL, but the way medical has just improved, and a lot of these athletes are just so good at taking care of themselves and really going through rehab. I think he'll be ready for the beginning of the season. And another signing that I think went a little quiet was Austin Hooper, just because of the fact that Ryan Tannehill does love the tight end. And I think Hooper is a better option than Anthony Ferguson. And that's something that I think he was missing in last season's game, was that he just didn't really have a solid tight end. I like Austin Hooper a lot. I think his stock has gone up too. Last team I want to talk about is going to be the Washington Commanders. First time I got to say that in a video. It's kind of weird. The Commanders obviously got Carson Wentz. Look, Carson Wentz, I don't have an up or down reaction to that. I think right now I'm kind of still assessing where he's at in my QB rankings and where I think he's going to be. I do think he does help Terry McLaurin. I think he's got a better arm than Taylor Heineke. I think the team loves Taylor Heineke. Well, at least the players do. I think he's got that locker room. But there's a reason why they went after Wentz. I think they see the talent that he has when he's on, if that makes sense. Like, he's not one of those quarterbacks that it's very consistent, but if he can play to the talent that he has, I think he can surprise a lot of people, and I think his stock is just going to obviously go up. I don't think he's in the best situation. I do think he does have obviously a good running back, which he had an even better one in Indy. There's a lot to be assessed. That's all I'm going to say with Carson Wentz. I'm not crazy about the move. As a Cowboy fan, I love it just because I think Carson Wentz isn't something we should be nervous about. But again, I think with Washington, I think it's going to help them a little bit. I think you get a new leader, new voice in the huddle. We'll see how things go. We'll see how the training camps go. We'll kind of listen to the buzz. But so that's my reaction to the first week of free agency and obviously the trades and the signings. So let me know down in the comments who your favorite signing or trade was so far this offseason. Obviously, we got a lot more free agency to come. Maybe I'll do some more reactions to that. Make sure you stay tuned to these videos. We'll be dropping some mock drafts for rookies. Obviously, if you're in Dynasty, it will only help you even more. If you guys are new to the channel and you guys did enjoy the content, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also, make sure you hit the like button while you're at it. It only helps us out and obviously will be greatly appreciated. Again, hit us in the comments who you think your favorite trade or signing was this offseason, and I'll check you guys out next time.